What's up, everybody? Cinephile Mike here. I have the pleasure of sitting with Jonny Durgan, the writer and director of the new short film G.S.W. Johnny, thank you so much for taking the time to sit with me this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So let me just start. You're coming off a huge year for GSW. You had the major festival runs, and now you have this theatrical screening at the Roxie in San Francisco. What does it mean to see a short film like this playing theatrically, especially now to a US audience?
Wow. Well, first of all, I didn't ever think it would travel beyond the UK. So I'm really, really thrilled. And it showed in a number of festivals in California and St. Louis. So I'm really, really blown over by the reception it's got. And yeah, I mean, every time it showed in a festival and watching it on a bigger screen with an audience, it just seems to add like another layer of enjoyment for me because you never really know how your film's going to go down until it's out there and people are watching it and giving you basically listening to the feedback right there and then in the theater. So it's really, really thrilled actually to have this kind of opportunity to do that. Yeah.
And where did the initial spark for GSW come from? Like, what made you want to tell this story through the eyes of the paramedics?
Yeah, it's a good question. My both my parents are medical people, and when I was young, my mum used to work as a nurse in ER, and so we used to kind of hear stories of like big car accidents and big traumatic kind of situations. Um, and obviously, somewhere in my mind, when I started to think of something that was filled with tension and drama, I obviously went to medical things because that's what I'd heard a lot about. And then as a second point, because a part of the story is that it's about a school shooting. My son is just about to start, well, he's just started school a few months ago. So when I was writing this, I think again, subconsciously, I had something about my son being out of my care and being in care of other people and what's going to happen when I'm not around. So I think those two elements kind of fused themselves together in my mind somewhere, and it came out like this.
And, being a school teacher and working in the system, these are, whenever I see these films that touch on this, they always hit something in me.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Now, the script for GSW, it's incredibly disciplined in what it withholds. A lot of the information we get is actually heard over the radio.
Yeah.
What would you say was the hardest piece of information to not show or explain?
I think I probably rewrote the description of the guy on the stretcher. I must have rewritten it because as that comes over the radio, they kind of look down and think, God, this might be the guy who's done something at this school. So I had to be vague enough for it to be relevant. I had to dress him in things that were a bit of an everyman kind of outfit, and just make sure that that was enough, but not too much at the same time.
And let's talk about Beth when you were writing her. She's carrying these two identities at once. She's a paramedic and she's a mother. And both
Yeah,
of these roles are being tested, in
yeah,
real time.
yeah.
When you were going through the process, what felt like the emotional center that you kept coming back to?
I think it was the idea of being a parent was always the kind of thing for me, and I think on the page actually she was quite a soft character to start with, but then when Genevieve O'Reilly came on board, she and she sat down. She's just like, I think she needs to be a bit more kind of a colder character because then when things escalate, it doesn't feel like too much of a jump. And she was absolutely right. I mean, the words didn't change on the page, just her delivery of them was different from what I imagined, and that's why you cast really good actresses and actors because they just bring a whole other dimension to things that weren't there in my mind. But I always saw her as someone who's a parent under pressure, and kind of all her professionalism that she kind of would hold every other time of an incident suddenly just evaporates. And then the other character of Joe, who's played by Kaya Brain, she starts off as a very kind of timid, like junior member of the team, and then but she kind of almost finishes with more certainty and more kind of professionalism than there's someone who's supposed to be the senior member of the team. So they kind of switch roles really in a way, and where they start and where they end. And they both did a fantastic job.
No, they do, and it's very intense. And when you're dealing with material this heavy,
Mm.
how did you create a set environment where the actors felt safe to go through those emotional places on what I'm assuming is probably a very short shooting schedule?
Yeah, well, we only shot for one day, and we had the day before we had a table read, and over the table read we kind of discussed a lot of things and just worked a lot of things out. But even then, because the budget was so tight, we didn't have the actual ambulance set until the day of the shoot. So we kind of did like every take we did right rehearsal, shoot, rehearsal, shoot, rehearsal, shoot, with a bit of time at the start to kind of get a hang of like the gurney and the stretch and things like that. But we were rapid fire and at times it was pretty stressful, not because of anything anyone was doing, but just because we were up against the time. And having such great people on set and with the camera team and the actresses as well, it just meant that we got through everything so quickly. The number of takes was so small each time. And I joked with Kaya and Genevieve at the time that like you're making my life so easy because I have no notes for this. You're just nailing it one after the other. I mean, there was obviously kind of tweaks here and there, but in terms of their delivery and their performance, it was as you watch it, it's just like incredible. It just blew me away.
You really captured the that claustrophobic feel, of being inside that small ambulance. Talk to me about your conversations with your cinematographer and how you opted to frame things the way that you did.
Well, it's a good question actually. Me and Rory O'Brien, he's a super experienced DOP and cinematographer. He's just done the Eternity film with Miles Teller and Callum Turner and Elizabeth Olsen. So he's like it's nothing he doesn't know. So I kind of sat down with him. I kind of pointed him into the references. We was really kind of referencing Paul Greengrass because he is very much a guy who uses like the camera, picks people out. There's no kind of setups here, setups there, then that. It's just you're in it. You kind of feel like you're actually right in the thick of it. But also the environment kind of informed the way we shot because there's no room for a tripod. There's no room for very much. It was kind of Rory at the back of it, and then he's like here, and then it was here. So between like the style and the space, we kind of found a way that really worked with the story and having a bit of a kinetic kind of way of shooting really kind of dialed it up a little bit as well because you kind of work out things as the character works them out. There's times there's a message comes over the radio and then you kind of look down, the camera goes down with it, you kind of look up and see Genevieve's reaction. It just felt so fluid and it just really fit the story, I think.
And now you talk about, the radio, looking down at it, listening to it. Sound plays such a massive role in the
Yeah.
film as well. It's almost like the fourth character in the piece.
Mm.
When did you and sound designer Nigel Albermanage, when did you realize that sound wasn't just a technical layer, but really a core part of how this story was going to unfold?
Yeah, yeah, it was a good point because kind of where we shot was like a very enclosed environment. So the things that you hear now with like sirens at a distance and all that that was all had to be added in. And as well with the kind of there's no room for a boom mic, so we had to kind of hide things around to pick up all the sound. It just the whole thing just felt enclosed, and the sound design of the almost the feeling like the echo bouncing off the walls of the ambulance and things like that. It just all just added to the whole sense of a very close, tight space. And sound and the sound team did an excellent job. Yeah.
So, as we said, you've screened this film with audiences around the world.
Mm.
What have you noticed about how people react when they watch it in a room together?
That's a really good question because I've really enjoyed being in the audience watching it now because I can hear like sharp intakes of breath, like people taking big gasps at the right time. And then when you come out and you hear people and they come and speak to me about it, they kind of felt a bit like they would do exactly the same given the information that they've get given, even though it goes south really quickly. There's not a single person who doesn't say, I would have done that differently. So it's a really interesting way. And I think people who are parents as well, or teachers, or people who work in that kind of school environment, they have another layer as well, particularly parents. And like, if it was my kid, I'd do X, Y, and Z. So it's been a very big spectrum of reactions. But the core feeling I feel from people is that they're normally quite shell shocked by the end of it, which is good because that's what I wanted to do.
Nice. Now, you talked, I saw in the press notes that I received, you talked about this now or never moment.
Yeah.
You left the stability of your first job to pursue filmmaking fully. And I kind of did something similar myself where I took a change in a position so I could do this work more,
Yeah.
from my seat. So now looking at, GSW, the impact that it's had, was there a moment where you thought, this is why I did this?
Yes, there was. It was the first edit, because like when you kind of get all the footage, you think, have I got everything or whatever, and thinking, is this the right, because it's only my second film, and I've clearly I've still have knowledge gaps, but I've got great producers and Rory as a DOP, everyone just, between everyone, we all made it work. And then when I sat down with Ollie, our editor, who again added another layer of excitement and like that kind of style of filmmaking. When I sat down with Ollie and watched the first edit, I took a big sigh and a big deep breath. I was like, it's good. It's good. It's really good. It's how I thought it would be. So that was definitely the moment. Yeah.
Nice. And so, as you said, you've now directed two short films. This is what I love to call the educational part of the interviews I do with every filmmaker that I get the chance to chat with.
Yeah.
Spreading that knowledge, right?
Mm.
Now that as you get ready to move on to number three, what would you say is one best practice that you've learned to take with you as you go into your next project? And what would you say has been your steepest learning curve along the way?
I think the best practice quite part of the question, I think, is just leaving room for the experts, right? Like we said, like my the cast that we had, my notes were only so much. Give them some space to do something else with it and lean on expertise of people who know what they're doing more. Because again, with Rory, our DOPs, like maybe we for this shot we'd do it like this. So I think you've got to be flexible. I think that's the biggest thing I've learned. In terms of steepest learning curve, I think it's actually the pre-production part of trying to get the finances together is always a big hurdle. And just kind of trying to forge relationships with people that as like-minded people who want to make good stuff and they want to do things together and have a community of filmmakers because that's the best part for me about the festival. It's not really about seeing the film or like that because it's just more like being amongst what you think are my people or our people that you could just talk about film forever and what you're doing next and how can I help or you should try this guy, speak to those guys, speak to, the post-production house I use was these guys. So, it's all a big achievement for anyone to make anything at the minute. And I think championing the community is always something that I would recommend for anyone who wants to start out.
And now thinking about everything that, GSW has achieved, what are you hoping now, especially right, this new run on the States, what are you hoping that the audience takes with them after seeing this film?
I think a sense of they've been something that they're going to remember, but I think everyone feels a bit, yeah, shell shocked, I think is the word I use. But I think something that's going to stick in their mind is what I hope for it. But in terms of where it goes in festival wise, I'll have to just see what 2026 brings. I'm so amazed by what we've done so far. So every new festival that we get into is like an absolute joy because I had no expectations. I made a film that I wanted to make, and then after that, it's kind of see what happens. And what has happened has been really, really good. So I'm really pleased for the support that it's got, and its people seem to connect with it. So yeah, so I'm over the moon.
Nice. Well, Jonny, congratulations again on the film, on the San Francisco run. GSW is a powerful piece of work, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about it with me.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
All right. So for any of my followers that are out on the West Coast in the San Francisco area, make sure you have a chance to go check out GSW. It is at the Roxie. All right. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you soon. And Happy New Year to all.